Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick. I want to do a brief introduction to Musa Monastery. Now, I've traveled across the Middle East visiting ancient Christian sites. So we're going to talk about a place outside of Damascus near a town called Nebuch called Musa.
Jesus was an Aramaic-speaking Jew of the Middle East, and the Assyrians are Aramaic-speaking Christians in the Middle East who have endured persecution for over 1,000 years. Join Voice of the Word Aramaic Bible teacher, artist, and author Stephen Missick as he examines the Bible through the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times in which it was first revealed. Research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots. And now, Voice of the Word.
Musa stands for Saint Moses. And earlier when I was in Egypt, I was talking to the local Coptic Christians, and there's a lot of devotion to various saints among the Coptic Orthodox Christians. And one of the popular saints down there was Saint Moses the Ethiopian. And this man was, I remember this, he's telling me the story about this guy. And he was a black man, Saint Moses the Ethiopian. And they're saying, or St. Moses the Black, that's what they're calling him, St. Moses the Black. And they're saying that he was an evil person, black not just in the pigment of his skin, but his character had a certain darkness about it. And yet he had an encounter with God, changed his life, and he became a monk and a great spiritual teacher who was renowned around the entire Middle East for his sanctity and sagacity, very wise teacher. And but he was probably from Ethiopia or Sudan. There used to be a large Christian community in Sudan. I think there's the Christian of Kingdom of Dongola. And I recently saw a publication of a lot of ancient Nubian Christian sites that had been excavated. However, sadly, that community was eradicated by the Muslims over 500 years ago, or longer than that, probably 700 to 800 years ago. So you had this thriving Sudanese, black African Christian community that was decimated and eradicated by Muslims. Now they forced them to pay ransom of slaves and and tribute and things like that. Finally, after all this oppression, they finally just swooped in and destroyed these kingdoms. But Ethiopia, as a Christian empire, was until the 70s. And Ethiopia has a very strong and vibrant Coptic Christian community to this day. You have the Ethiopian or Eritrean Orthodox churches. I think it's they're monophysite, but it's the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So that might be where St. Moses the Ethiopian was from, maybe from Ethiopia itself. So even though he is from Ethiopia, went to Egypt, his monastery is in Syria. And there was a connection between the Syrian Orthodox Church and the Egyptian Orthodox Church. In fact, when I was in Egypt, you had the Wadi Natrun monasteries, and one of them was called Deir al-Syriani, which means the Syrian monastery. And some very important Aramaic manuscripts were found and have been found in Egypt. So what had happened is this was St. Moses the Ethiopian, St. Moses the Black, very famous saint across the Middle East. He had this monastery that was devoted to him. And I went there. I traveled over there with my friend Dr. Mark Crete, and I actually went there twice. I got a lot of photographs from my first trip. I didn't go with Dr. Mark, actually. I went on my own both times. So it's very interesting. What had happened is the monastery had been abandoned, and there was an Italian Franciscan priest called Father Pablo. He had a vision to reopen the monastery and work with the local Christian, Syrian Orthodox Christians, Syrian Catholics, and restore this community of Musa. And he had a little newsletter he's putting out, and he's a Franciscan missionary. And St. Francis is a very interesting figure. I think he has quite an appeal, very popular saint. And one of the things he did, I recommend you look into the life of St. Francis of Assisi. He was a war veteran, probably suffered from PTSD, he had a spiritual experience, he devoted his life to Christ. born into wealth and privilege. He gave it all up and embraced a life of poverty and simplicity and evangelism. And he brought about a spiritual revival which probably saved the Catholic Church and changed the history of the world. But St. Francis of Assisi, he decided that his mission was to pattern his life after that of Jesus Christ and focus on the Gospels. So, my tradition, I'm an evangelical Christian, a Protestant, and in a sense, I believe that that's what the Protestant Reformation is supposed to be about, right? Return to the Scriptures, return to the simplicity of the Gospel, and that's what St. Francis of Assisi was trying to do, bring about a spiritual awakening and a Reformation. But of course, this is a Reformation that happened within the confines of the Roman Catholic Church. But one of the things he did was the Crusades were going on, they were raging, and he's saying, how come no one's just went over and just confronted the Muslims with the gospel message? Of course, the Muslims are oppressing the local Christians and have been for centuries, and the gospel's there for them if they ever chose to heed it. But why not? He's right. Why not? I mean, I guess he could do that as an outsider if you're a Christian minority being oppressed by, or actually, for a long time, like the Coptic Christians, they were actually the majority, ruled over by a Muslim minority. And eventually, a way to escape persecution was to convert to Islam. It took a long time. So Egypt was one of the centers of early Christianity, and now it's probably 15% Christian or so. I think the government of Egypt claims it's like 6%. It's not that low. Some Coptic Christians think that they're as high as 25%, but I think it's a reasonable estimate to say that Egypt is 15% Christian. If you go around Cairo, you can see Coptic churches all over the place, and there's millions of Christians in Egypt. But what happened was St. Francis of Assisi did confront the Sultan, and the Sultan was impressed by St. Francis, and for certain privileges were bestowed by the Muslim caliph or sultan on the Franciscans. And even today, like if you go into Damascus and in Jerusalem, there are places that are administered by the Franciscans because of, I guess, the friendliness of St. Francis and the impact that he made on the Muslim rulers. So this is a Franciscan priest, and he's a good man. I really appreciate what he was trying to do. But I was concerned about his, from my perspective, a little certain naivety about the risk of radical Islam. And Father Pablo was fluent in Arabic. He studied the Islamic sources, and he would have friendly interfaith dialogue with the local Muslims. And I guess that's good, but it's like I said, what about extremism? What about jihadism? What about these chapters of the Quran the Surah of the Sword? And he was just, it's like, look, I appreciate what you're doing. This is amazing. This is a wonderful thing to see this, an abandoned monastery be renewed as a vibrant Christian community. But I said, I just recommend caution in dealing with these radical Muslim elements. It's dangerous. And, I really appreciate and admire Father Paulo. He kind of laughed me off, didn't take the threat seriously. And he ended up being martyred by ISIS. The monastery, of course, is once again abandoned. But the story's not over yet. God's the God of the impossible, and I believe we're going to see a reawakening of the church in the Middle East, which I'm going to talk about that more in following teachings. Now, let's look at Mar Musa Monastery. So I need to get more details about it. I'm just basing on my experience traveling in the region, interacting with Coptic and Syrian Christians. But this is a very ancient monastery. And one thing that's interesting about it, one of the problems we have in the United States is our elite, our Marxist, anti-Christian elites. And these people have been having power for a long time, probably from the turn of the 20th century. And, I like National Geographic magazine. Unfortunately, it's purchased by Disney, sadly, like a lot of things are. But it's really kind of dismayed and disturbed me that National Geographic, over 100 years, where they do all kinds of articles on all these different tribes, nationalities around the world. And they had a lot of articles, especially in the 70s, advocating for Islam. The magazine has a lot of pro-Muslim articles. One of their staff members converted to Islam, and he's really pushing that. praising Islamic society and culture. And we need to be informed about history and I guess the contribution of Muslims. I'm not totally against that. But it's like, how come they never did an article on the Coptic Christians of Egypt, just focusing on them? Or the Mandeans of Iraq, that's the Christians of St. John, the so-called Christians of St. John the Baptist. Or, the Assyrian Christians, or the Armenian. I think they might have done the Armenians, actually. The International Armenian Community. That's the only group they've actually, they're not interested in writing articles about the Christian community. Finally, they did. And they featured, they didn't do an article about a specific Christian ethnicity in the Middle East, like the Assyrians or the Coptic Christians. Probably never would do that because they don't have a Christian agenda. They have an anti-Christian agenda. But they finally did an article about the Christian communities and the decline of Christianity in the Middle East. And they featured Musa on the cover of that one magazine in 100 years. Finally, they did one article on Middle Eastern Christianity. And Musa, the monastery of Musa, was on the cover. And I was like, well, it's about time. But sadly, the experiment, the noble experiment, which turned out to be a sacrifice of Father Pablo, for the time being, has failed. I think we're going to be able to restore that. One of the things that's important about Musa Monastery is there's a Last Judgment painting, this huge wall painting in that monastery. And I really enjoyed being there. It's kind of funny. To stay at that monastery, that community, you had to work. You can't come there and not work. So I ascended, hiked up that mountain. It's a long trail. So I get to the top, and it's like, okay, if you're going to visit and stay here, you need to work. Once you pump some water, and I was thirsty. So it was a hand pump, and I was like, drinking because I was worked up a thirst climbing up that mountain to that monastery. So it's a very amazing and beautiful place. And I want to share, I've traveled around the world. I got all these photographs and these videos. And it's like I need to put this information out there to educate people. And God's in control. And I really do not believe that we're going to see the end of Christianity in the Middle East. I know that ISIS decimated a lot of Christian communities. But things are happening. Through the work of Nabil Qureshi and David Wood and Dr. J. Smith and others, a lot of these sensational claims by Muslims are being exposed about the so-called preservation of the Quran. You got Hatun Tash. She's shown that there's actually 38 different versions. The Muslims are going around, oh, there's one, you have many translations of versions of the Bible, we have one Quran. And she's showing that 38 different versions of Quran are used all across the Islamic world. Every single one of those 38 differs from the other, which is not a surprise. I was surprised they made those claims. It's like, that's impossible. When you pass down a book by hand for 1,000 years, you're going to have scribal mistakes and variants. It's inevitable. And, we've always embraced the notion that we have different translations and versions of the Bible. You have the Latin Vulgate, the Syriac Peshitta, you got there's actually different Greek traditions in the New Testament. We just deal with the fact that I believe through scholarly methodology we can reconstruct with like 96% certitude of the original text of the New Testament based on comparison all these manuscripts with one another. But Muslims claiming that there's no differences in any Quran around the Islamic world, it's absurd, and now they're exposed. And the other issue is that the life of the Quran, the Quran itself evolved over centuries. We can prove that now. And the accounts of the life of Muhammad, the Hadith, it's not historical. They're not historical documents. Islam didn't even emerge until over 60 years after Muhammad died. The early so-called caliphs never claimed to be Muslims. They didn't talk about Muhammad or Islam. And then in the year 692, all of a sudden, Islam appears. So Muhammad supposedly died in the year 632, even though contemporary accounts describe him as being alive. Muslim sources written 100 years later, after Muhammad supposedly died or longer, say he died in the year 632. Contemporary accounts have him still alive in the year 634. So this is recent revelations, and scholars are starting to re-examine realizing that these traditional accounts of Muhammad's life are not historical, And now they're starting to apply skepticism to these accounts, and maybe we can establish some historical facts about Muhammad, so-called Muhammad, if he existed, whoever this prophet was, and we can start studying the evolution of the Quran and the different forms that it existed at and still exist at to this day. So this is new research, and what does that mean for Islam? This is inescapable that these historical facts are being exposed. And I think that a lot of people have been alienated from Islam due to radicalism. I think that the extremism of ISIS and their claim to be doing this as a Islamic revivalist movement has repulsed, and a lot of people, they found it repulsive. So it's forcing people to doubt and become more secular because of the extremism. These people, in the end, they are actually hurting Islam by their brutality and the savage attacks that they did against Yazidis and Syrian Christians and others. So the story of Christianity in the Middle East, of Arab Christianity, these other groups like the Assyrians, it's not over yet. God's still at work, and things are changing. And we're going to start, I firmly believe, we're going to start seeing a revival of Middle Eastern Christianity. We're going to start seeing Christianity advance again in the Middle East, built upon these foundations like what we see in Musa. We're going to start seeing great and mighty things of God that people couldn't even imagine or think is possible, because God is the God of the impossible. So, I want you to look at the video that I took of my trip to Nebuch. The first time I went by myself, it was, I usually try to go over there when it's cool in the fall or spring, but I actually went there in a winter season, and I had to, when I climbed the mountain, I was trampling to get to Musa's monastery. So here's the video. Enjoy, and the reason I'm putting this information out there is to educate people, inform people, and edify people, so we can learn about the rich contributions of Middle Eastern Christianity and Arabic and Syrian Christianity to the story of the gospel message around the whole world. So thank you, and God bless you.
Now, these stairs weren't here when I first came to Musa. So now, still a difficult climb, but much safer. When I first came, I could easily have slipped down into that basin and broke a leg, if not killed myself. Guess there's a little bit of question if our driver's gonna come pick me up. I did run down bush to him, so that should encourage him to come pick me up. See, he crossed the top of the hill. I wonder how Musa found this place. It's pretty barren area out by itself a good ways. Let's zoom up to the monastery compound. That's where I came down from. Huh? That's the monastery. And I'm out of shape. Okay. Now I think this would be fun. To take the cable all the way down there. See all the way up here. Send that little thing. But I'd probably crap my pants. In fear. But yeah. stayed in this monastery before. Whew. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Nice. And here's the entrance. Yep. Whole entrance. Sanctuary. You can see old painting of the Last Judgment. This is where they have services now. Got a little heater in there. Nice, huh?
شو؟ من وين انت؟
I'm from America.
America, nice to
امريكا؟
Yes, from Texas. Houston.
لما ابوش بتقول له انه هون يعني انه
Nobody likes Bush, I know.
من امريكا.
Yeah. Hi. This is. How you doing?
Are you?
I'm Steven from America. Where are you from? Oh, really? That's good. I've been to England before. All right. Let's look. Let's look down. Down. Puke. What a view, huh? Yeah, this is from the top of the monastery. Hi, I'll be right with you. There's, I think it's the women's quarters, but nobody's staying there. That's where I lived last time I was here in Musa. All right, now they're gonna take a break. This is the monastery museum. Showing what it was like when you first rediscovered Father Pablo's mission. Unfortunately, Father Pablo's he's in Rome right now. These are a lot of the archaeological artifacts. And probably some gifts to the monastery. Hello. I didn't know those people were going to come through, but this is the monastery. Just a few minutes. Since I caught my breath. This has changed since the last time I was here. I think that goes to the women's quarters. I stayed on the other side of that bridge. They're still building it. Now it's officially the women's quarters, so I don't think men can go over there, even though it'd be kind of interesting to climb the bridge. Now, over here is the Cave of the Martyrs. But since my driver's leaving in just a few minutes, well, 30 minutes, I don't think I'm going to go to the Cave of the Martyrs. But I'm going to check out this dam here. It looks like they actually have water in the dam. Look at that. How the mud is down there. It's probably good for them. But I got 5 minutes, so for these 5 minutes. Wow, they really did have water for a while. It's nice. I think that's the Cave of the Martyrs up there. You can see it. It must be nice while they had water. Look, they got pipes down there. There's the monastery for the back. I should probably take a photograph of that. This, real quick. You got trees down where the dam used to be. See the bridge, the monastery. And there's the monastery. Alright. Fun's over. Now it's time to go back down the mountain. Whoopee! Pardon me, sir.
C'est toi qui lance le départ, hein?
On va rentrer par là, les centres de fond là. Aller à côté du...
Let me see.
Ok.
Okay.
Vous voulez rentrer avec moi?
Et
You got me. Just look at me.
oui.
Yeah.
Et là, depuis là?
No, just look at the side. Screen. You see it?
Là, d'accord.
Just see me.
Voilà, et puis après où?
I just want to say, well, you know, here I am. Hello.
Oui, après il faut que j'appuie où?
Tu le vois pas sur l'écran là? Tu peux le
Si.
voir sur l'écran?
Ça y est, je le vois, oui.
Tu peux le
voir ici.
Ouais, oui, je le vois.
I thought I should be in the movie.
Mais je voudrais bien le...
Okay.
Ça prend là?
Thanks a lot. That's good.
Appuie sur quelque chose?
Thank you.
Non, j'ai rien appuyé sur rien du tout.
What's button?
It's filming.
No.
It's okay.
Ah, it's okay?
It's on.
Ah, ça a marché?
Non, t'as appuyé?
That's okay. Thanks a lot.
Alors j'ai bougé, hein?
Added communities. They have volunteers from friends working with the ecological projects. My driver's waiting for me, so here's the monastery, and now for the way down. I'm gonna walk all the way down to the bottom of the monastery, where, inshallah, we'll be there at 3:30. It's now 3 o'clock. We want to start 30 minutes to climb down this mountain. Okay, here goes. Hello, Mom Musa. It's nice to see you again. Maybe I'll come back again sometime. I don't know. Looks kind of different going down. Maybe I'm wasting film. But maybe not. This is an example of the agricultural projects. Alright, let's get a panorama here. There's the monastery goats. Bah. You go up this hill. Get the kind of scope of everything. There it is. There's one of the living facilities. There's the monastery. There's other living facilities over there. And that's the whole mountainside.
Research, rescue, and restore. Help Voice of the Word and Aramaic Christian Ministries mission research the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times of the Bible. Rescue persecuted Assyrian Christians in the Middle East and restore Christianity to its original Semitic roots. For Stephen Missick's books, online giving, and other resources from Aramaic Christian Ministries, visit www.stephenmissick.com. Join us next time on Voice of the Word as we research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots.